We're here live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the track has just gone green for the first free practice session of the Formula One United States Grand Prix weekend. Hello and welcome to live coverage of the FIA Formula One World Championship on Speed Channel. Hello again, and thanks for joining us for the first of 4 time practice sessions for this weekend. I'm Rick DeBrule. Joining me in the booth, as always, my colleagues, former Grand Prix driver David Hobbs, former mechanic for the Benetton Formula One team, Steve Matchett. And this weekend, we also have 2 other members of Team Speed down in pit lane this weekend. Let's first send it down to another former Grand Prix driver, Derek Daly.
I am here. We had 11 cars that did the test session earlier. The 3 Renaults were the fastest of those cars. Of course, the interest was with the Jordan team to see would Ralph Furman be able to take part this weekend, because last Wednesday in a test session at Silverstone, he still blacked out as a result of the effects of his crash in Hungary. They say he is now okay to continue the rest of the weekend. And of course, we have also down in the pit lane here the man you have seen live on Speed Channel all year long at the Formula One events, Peter Windsor.
Thank you very much, Derek. Hi, guys. I'm outside the BMW Williams garage. I got a great view at the moment of the grandstand opposite, which looks like Italy versus Colombia. It looks like, I think it's a Formula One race they're watching. Could be football, though.
A huge Colombian contingent down there, big flags in the stands. And we got to talk about weather. It is chilly out here today, guys.
It is extremely chilly, and the weather forecast for the weekend is certainly, let's say, a little bit on the iffy side. We've had a little bit of rain today already, just a sprinkle. Expecting more showers today, very heavy rain tonight, and then tomorrow and Sunday is a little bit undecided. But they reckon it's going to be cool, which will not help these guys on their Michelin tires.
No, already in the lead up for this session, we've seen the mechanics.
That is Montoya
off. First off, yeah, and we saw a little bit of spray coming up as you can see now the wet patches on the tread. But already the mechanics in the pit lane are beginning to work on wet weather settings on spare wings. The possibility of these skies opening up and we have some rainfall. We have had some light rain, but it isn't falling at the moment.
And the forecast all week really, has been going back and forth. One day they'll say it's going to be raining on Saturday or Sunday. Next day they say it won't. The last forecast I saw last night said they were expecting a possibility of sprinkles on Sunday.
Yesterday was supposed to be a bit sprinkly, and it was absolutely gorgeous all day. Here we see Montoya again. You see that puff of smoke out the back. I'm not sure that's a tyre lockup or engine, really.
Well, there's a lot of brake dust as well, David, come out just when he locked up. Now that's a high
definitely
braking point of the circuit there. They're going down from about 205 miles an hour, absolutely flat chat at 19,000 RPM down to 56 to negotiate corner 1. And a lot of brake dust coming out of the Williams chassis.
Yeah.
Guys, you were talking about the relatively cool conditions. After the test session this morning, I had a chat to a few of the runners. Most of them, I have to say, said that at the moment it looks pretty cold for Michelin. Talking to Frank Durney, one of the Williams engineers, he said, yeah, it smells a little bit like Bridgestone conditions at the moment. But it's, wait and see what happens. Michelin are not coming here thinking it's going to be hot, so they're not stupid. Equally, at the moment, let's see what the Bridgestone runners do.
Well, of course, the whole thing is so close, really. There's Michael Schumacher running in 3rd spot so far.
Fastest at the moment is Ralf Schumacher, followed by David Coulthard.
Right-hander coming up, and then onto Holman Boulevard, the infield straight.
Great to see Ralf Schumacher going straight out and doing a time like that. Obviously a big weekend for him, because he was past medically fit to race in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza 2 weeks ago, but on the Friday just felt too giddy when he got in the car, too dizzy, had to get out and pulled out of that Grand Prix. He's not sat in a Formula One car since, so he needed to go out of the garage, give it some stick, see how he felt, and at the moment, signs are good for Ralf Schumacher.
Mark Webber in the Jaguar posting the fastest first sector time of the morning so far, 22.451.
That is the fastest chauffeured ride you will ever have in your entire life.
Of course, Mark Webber already done an hour's practice this morning in that 2-hour session, in fact, this morning. So he is really tuned in and geared up for the track already. So look for the guys who ran earlier, the Renaults, Jags, to be going quick at this stage.
As you watch David Coulthard get it. It is slippy out there, guys, isn't it?
Although it doesn't seem very wet. I mean, it's been kind of spitting rain this morning, but not enough to really soak down the track. Woke up this morning and outside the hotel, some patches of wet roadway, but in terms of what we've had this morning, it hasn't at any point really been any serious rain.
Well, I wonder whether or not we have to look at this track has been diamond ground to put grooves all the way around the track, the Indianapolis oval part of the track. It disappears on the infield section, but those grooves of course will hold that water, that light rain we've had. Now those grooves disappear as we go into the infield, but remember, with the downforce effect of the diffuser on these cars, I wonder if it's starting to lift that water out a little bit and go over the tyres. So the grooves are pretty much like the groove on a record when you look at it, very, very fine, and I bet that's been holding the water, not allowing it to run off.
And of course the grooves and tyres in general have been a lot of controversy recently, Steve, as you know, but this year has definitely turned out to be a tyre war. And Michelin, of course, had their wings trimmed a little bit at the last race because of the new fronts they developed. They have brought here 2 brand new constructions of tyre for their cars to go against this battle, Michelin versus Bridgestone. Peter, you looked very carefully at the track earlier on. I know you saw some interesting things.
Well, that's right, yeah, just following on from what Steve was saying there. During that untimed session this morning, the red flag was brought out. The track was actually closed for a while because some sealer between those grooves popped out, and they had to, of course, to remove that from the track surface. I was talking to Alan McNish about it. He said you wouldn't want to hit one of those. It would take off, absolutely, at the very least, it would take a front wing end plate off your car. So let's hope we see no more of that. That's only happening, as Steve says, on the main straight here. The rest of the track appears to be okay. Alan also said it's very, very dusty offline, and here we see David Coulthard, replay of David Coulthard's spin. If you get offline, it's just like ice at the moment.
Now the picture you saw just a moment ago of somebody on track, that was from this morning during that test session. Now we're back to our live pictures. The car is out on the track right now.
There's quite a lot of sealer.
That was a huge chunk of sealer.
Yeah, when I thought a bit of sealer had come up, I thought they meant a bit of sealer, not about 8 feet of it.
Well, what they did that diamond
like an anaconda
for, I understand, was to take the high points off the old asphalt to try and get some extra life out of the track before they had to resurface the whole thing. So they may have taken the high spots off. But clearly, I mean, you can see there's a lot of shots. As again, we're watching Coulthard in the McLaren. That's that little spin we saw moments ago from David Coulthard in the MP4 17D. Yes, guys, it is still last year's McLaren chassis that McLaren are using. They have said they will not be using that MP4 18 this year. It will now just become a test chassis. Expect next year the 19 car to be released.
Cristiano D'Amato out on the track right now. Yesterday, he went out driving around the track in a sedan for the first time ever having been on this track, because he'd never raced here even on the oval. So yet another track he had to learn. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Speed Channel will be your home for live coverage of the entire United States Grand Prix weekend. Stick with us as we continue live coverage straight up until provisional qualifying. That'll begin at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 o'clock if you're here in Indianapolis. Tomorrow we start the day off with live coverage of the 2nd and 3rd free practice sessions. That'll begin at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, and we'll be live for 2 more hours. Then we'll return at 1:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time for the 4th practice session, also known as the warm-up session, and our live coverage will continue through the final round of qualifying. And finally, on Sunday at 12:30 in the afternoon, Speed is proud to bring you live coverage of the 4th United States Grand Prix. As always, we'll kick things off with the Acura pre-race show featuring Peter Windsor and Derek Daly's famous grid walk. So keep it tuned here all weekend long for Speed Channel's live coverage of the United States Grand Prix. We'll be back. Friday practice for the United States Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jensen Button out on the track right now. We talked about the big Colombian contingent in the stands downstairs. Well, there's one Colombian who has far more interest in what's going on today, and he's with Peter Windsor right now.
That's absolutely right, Rick. His name is Pablo Montoya. He's Juan Pablo's father. Pablo, seem to be a lot of Colombians here this weekend.
Yes, I think it's going to be a lot of support for Juan Pablo, so it's going to be very good.
Now, there's a sign here on a big banner. If I can, my translation, I don't think it'll be very good, but I think it says something like Juan Pablo is first because the second is in Rome. I think this is some reference to the Pope, right? And Juan Pablo actually being bigger than the Pope?
No, not bigger. It's because in Spanish, Juan Pablo is the same as the Pope. The Pope is Juan Pablo II. So on Juan Pablo, they put Juan Pablo first.
Very, very good. Tell me, how many Colombians do you think have made the trip here this weekend?
I don't know, but should be many because what I heard from everybody, all the planes came completely crowded of Colombians.
Brilliant, and I guess Juan Pablo loves this, eh?
Yes, of course. He feels he feels like at home because in some way this is his home track.
And does he like the pressure?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I think it's going to be a brilliant weekend. Back to you, Rick.
I remember sitting there talking with Montoya's father, you know, back when he was doing champ cars a few years ago, and him telling the story about he used to put Juan Pablo in the go-kart and put him in his lap and let him drive around. You think about how proud he must be today.
Boy, I'll say, yeah, incredible. Obviously got him started very early.
This is Mark Webber just a moment ago.
Loops it nearly around, manages to arrest the slide.
Maybe he needed the Porsche track map with David Hobbs to get his way around properly.
Well, there you see the track map, start-finish line down to turn 1 at around about 200 miles an hour. Turn 1, pretty slow, about 70. Then you've got to get some rhythm going through turn 2, 3, 4. Goes in on a very wide radius, tightens up on the exit. 5, on the other hand, is a bit tight going in, then it unwinds. 6 is a long looper, but you got to get 7 right because that Holman Boulevard is the second fastest point of the track, about 170 miles an hour. Then 8, 9, and 10, very, very tight. You need to get some rhythm there. You need really good mechanical grip through there. Then from 11, a flat-out blast, the longest full throttle in any racetrack in Formula 1, 22 seconds or thereabouts, from turn 11 down to turn 1 on flat chat. So a lot of strain on the engines, and we hear that one of the engines from Asia this weekend is reckoning to turn at 19,000 RPM for the first time in their career. So that would sound good in the grandstand here.
Joining this BMW engine in the 19,000 range. Ralf Schumacher out on the track right now. Ralf obviously having missed the last race as a result of the testing accident. On Friday, they decided he was out on the track that Friday at Monza. And they decided that he was feeling a little woozy, and that it was really a team decision that he wasn't going to take part. But he is back, and everything seems to be up to snuff.
Yeah, he's second fastest so far. Very, very close. The times at the moment. Fred Alonso is fastest at 1:11.7. Ralph 1:11.7. Barrichello 1:11.7. Weber 1:11.7.
And just that fast.
Coulthard 1:11.9.
Now Ralf Schumacher is faster.
But still at a 1:11.7 and change. So,
well, these guys now, what they'll be doing in these opening laps of the first practice session, will be trying that hard and soft compound. So we'll expect to see a lot of the cars do those little loops like Jaguar. Those we were saying before, Jaguar are out in the private testing session. They're just now getting a grip, getting a feel of the grip level from each of these tyres, hard and soft, and they'll be in and out of the garage changing compounds and changing the sway bars and the spring rates just to try and get a general feel of the thing. So it'll be very fast and frantic action. You'll see this all weekend long as well. Just getting the drivers used to stopping absolutely on the nail of where the pit stop is, because you do not want those mechanics moving a foot to the left or to the right simply because it just loses too much time.
Yesterday I was watching Toyota do some practice pit stops out in front of their garage, and they were doing a practice fueling, changing the nose, and changing the steering wheel, all of which was accomplished in 9 seconds, and it would have been faster except the guy who was pretending to be the driver fumbled the steering wheel for about a second. So they could have done a nose change, tires, fuel, and steering wheel in 8 seconds.
I tell you what, to do a nose in 8 seconds, Rick, that's very quick. We used to reckon if you could change a nose in 15 seconds, you were doing well in the pit stop. That just goes to show how quick these guys are working now. And of course, this is a very important race. I mean, the championship is right on the line for this race, and if it's decided in the pits, a last half second could lose the championship.
You don't want to be that guy responsible for that.
The pressure here today is absolutely extraordinary. It will be throughout the entire weekend. The weather looks iffy, which is going to throw in another part of the equation there. And obviously, with only 3 points separating the top 2 guys and only 7 the top 3, with 2 races to go. I mean, this is just a bare knuckle fight right here for the whole weekend.
Listen to that thing. Go on.
Look at 1:11.842, and he's 5th.
It's got to blow, no.
Blamo.
Boy, let's not wish ill on anyone up here. Juan Pablo Montoya, no engine problems at the end of this lap at all. We're going to take a brief break. We'll come back with more from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway live on Speed Channel.
Welcome back to Speed Channel's coverage of the 2003 Indianapolis Grand Prix, where Michael Schumacher has just taken P1 in his attempt to try to clinch the World Championship this weekend. I'm with Bjorn Verdheim, who this morning tested for Jordan. He's the International Formula 3000 champion. Bjorn, what were the track conditions like here at Indy this morning?
Well, it's very slippery, obviously, because from what I understand, you don't do very much running on this circuit apart from the Grand Prix. But anyway, it was a good experience. It was good to get to know the circuit a little bit better.
It's a very valuable period for any team to run in the morning. What was your brief this morning?
Well, we were testing different tires, and we were running with quite a lot of fuel. So testing basically for the race. And then towards the end, we did some runs with low fuel.
How does Formula 3000 compare with Formula 1?
Well, it's a huge difference, and I think Formula 3000 takes quite a different driving style, and it just takes some time to get used to driving the Formula 1 car.
Well, good to see you graduating to Formula 1. Back to you, Rick.
Bjorn Verdheim, the Formula 3000 championship, and the question is, where is he going to be next year? He's pretty much made it clear he's not going to be back in Formula 3000. And we were talking with David Richards last night, and he spoke very highly of Bjorn Verdheim last night.
He did, indeed.
Ooh. Well, there is the first Kurt Blamo of the weekend. That didn't take very long, did it?
And that could be the car that...
Giancarlo Fisichella is out of the car. Derek?
And this is one of the Ford Cosworth engines. Believe it or not, they pay an engine bill of $17.8 million. And this is breakage number 24 this season. So very frustrating for the Jordan team. As you can see, they have brought in a red flag because he actually blew and laid the oil down on the banking session. It's only 9 degrees, but it is banked session as they come onto this front straight. They got to go clean it up.
And that's last year where Rubens Barrichello had his tire go down and went into that outside wall. Giancarlo Fisichella. Boy, what an
again, he's done a few of these.
I mean,
walks
the year he finally gets his victory, but the rest of the season has been so horrible for him.
He's got 10 points for the year, and but really, apart from the win in Brazil, he's had like his best position.
Well, that's it. I mean,
like 10.
All 10 points came with the one. You know,
right.
he most of the races he hasn't finished. The races he has finished, he's got a 12th, a 15th, a 10th, a 12th, a 10th. The rest of them have been DNFs.
Yeah.
Fisichella had a lot of problems this morning in the testing session. He only got out for about half an hour of running, so they were obviously having problems with that Jordan chassis during that testing session. So he hasn't got an awful lot of running in anyway. But
there you see the times there. Michael Schumacher's heads are sheet to the left, but look at that. Ralf Schumacher only 45 hundredths of a second behind him, and Alonso just behind them. The Renault with reputedly about 70 horsepower less than the top runners, and in spite of that 22-second full chat, only a few tenths, a few hundredths off Michael Schumacher's time.
And you look at Montoya, championship contender, back in 6th. Kimi Räikkönen, championship contender, back in 9th right now.
Now let's have a look at this engine just going up. Well, it's already gone in, but there's all the oil going right over the racing line.
He's
actually is off the racing line.
Pretty much low, but nevertheless, just
but
right there.
Flowing out of that right-hand bank. Oh dear.
Explaining to everyone just exactly what went wrong.
Well, it does put, there is so much strain on the engine here. Remember that this straight section past the pits, it's 22 seconds. It's the longest period of full throttle work all the way throughout the Formula One calendar.
Derek?
With Giancarlo Fisichella, I know it's a bit of frustration to have this because there's been a lot of engine problems this year.
Yeah, a lot of engine problem and a lot of engine blow up, unfortunately. I lost even most of the part of the free practice this morning for another problem. There was an oil leak, and now I went back again and I blow up the engine, so it's not a good start, but anyway, I will do my best.
Does your win in Brazil seem a long way away now?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Yeah. I had a good time. I won my first race in Formula One. I'm happy for that. But after that, it's been a very frustrating season. Anyway, I got two more races to do. I will do my best to leave the Jordan team because I had a good period with them, and I wish all the best to them.
Thank you.
Giancarlo Fisichella moving on to Sauber next year. Fisichella, who many have thought was a man of incredible skill, but just hasn't had the car and the combination to make it work. Oh, we still got the red flag, and course workers out there making sure everything's going to be nice and dry for the rest of the session. We're going to take a brief break. We'll come back with more from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway after this. What the potent.
Welcome back to the 2003 United States Grand Prix at Indianapolis, where unofficial practice has briefly been halted due to a massive engine failure on Giancarlo Fisichella's Jordan Ford. I'm with Marc Genet, who stood in for Ralf Schumacher in the BMW Williams team in the Italian Grand Prix. Marc, you've been listening on the radio this morning. How are things looking for Ralf?
Yeah, Ralf is feeling fine. He's been very quick straightaways, which means even though he hasn't been on a car for quite a while, time doesn't pass for him. And I have to admit the team are happy and the car is working quite well.
Did you get the impression from Ralf this morning that he was determined to get in the car and just do a quick time straight away?
Yeah, very much so. When I went into the briefings room, when we were discussing before the race, you could see that he was really looking forward for the race. He's very motivated, and when you don't race for such a long time, then you're even more eager to get in the car. So that proved to be the quickest straight away.
What's your take on the speeds of the cars at the moment? Bridgestone versus Michelin, Williams versus Ferrari?
Yeah, the tires seem quite evenly matched. I mean, you can see Ferrari is also up there, and this morning session, even the Jordan also looked quite quick. So I think there's not much on the tire. If it rains, then it's big question mark, because tires seem to work on different amount of water. But if it's dry, I think we'll have a very evenly matched race.
Have you driven on this new Michelin wet that they have here?
Yes, I have, and although it's good, I don't know if good enough to beat Bridgestone in the wet, but yeah, Michelin have worked also very hard. I, however, hope there's no rain for the weekend.
Yeah, we all hope that. Thank you very much indeed, Marc. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks, nice.
Marc Genet, who ably filled in at Monza while Ralf Schumacher was forced to sit out. The intriguing thing, Ralf Schumacher is now out of the championship, and officially there's no team orders, but will he be willing to move over? Will he be willing to get in the way? Now, as we mentioned earlier, Speed Channel will be your home for Formula One throughout the United States Grand Prix weekend. Join us tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, or 8 a.m. if you're here in Indy, for live coverage of the second and third free practice sessions. We'll see the teams and drivers fine-tune their setups, and we'll have Derek Daly and Peter Windsor in the pit lane. Again, that's live tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, only here on Speed. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Derek Daly standing by with one of the key members of the Mercedes world.
Thank you indeed, Norbert Haug. Norbert, this World Championship really has turned into a tremendous fight. Mercedes right in the middle of it. Are you disappointed that the 18, which was the new development car, never quite made it to the racetrack, Norbert?
Well, on the one hand, yes, but we made a very big step with the 18 and had a very good test, but we just did not manage to get the car ready before the summer break, the test ban. So we need to focus on the 17, and I have to say the team did a great job with the 17. It's still a competitive car, we could not quite make it in Monza, but at the end, Kimi was 13 or 14 seconds behind the race winner Michael Schumacher, and we still should be in quite a good position. We lost a couple of points during the course of the year, obviously, but other than that, I think the 17 is doing a great job.
And as we watch the monitor here, of course, great support for the Colombians, for Juan Pablo Montoya. But back to the Mercedes-Benz, how much development, Norbert, is there in the engines from the start of the season to the end? I mean, can you relate it in horsepower increase?
That's a continuous process, and I would say, you know, if you achieve a plus of 3 to 5% over the course of the season, then you did a great job.
Thank you, Norbert. We're watching pictures now of Fisichella in the Ford Cosworth, just the reason for the red flag here. Kimi comes here with a realistic chance of winning this World Championship. Is he on orders to be aggressive this weekend or to be careful?
Well, careful. You cannot win, as you know, if you are careful, but you should be disciplined enough to keep the car on the road. But you know, this new qualifying format, I mean, that just describes that anything can happen. You know, you can have a session where the first guys run when it's dry, the second half runs when it's wet, whatever. So all of a sudden, you know, we might end up Kimi being in the front and the main opposition in the back of the field. This is possible. Lots of things like that happen during the course of the season. We have had really some bad luck as well, and maybe it turns around in our favor. We should be in quite a good position, and I would say if we do a good job here, we should be in a better position as we have been in Monza 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, Norbert. See you later on. Of course, Norbert does have somewhat of an American link because Dan Gurney's wife, Evie, who many of us know, Norbert is married to Evie's sister.
Ah, the family. There is Ralf Schumacher doing his best David Hobbs impersonation.
What?
I have to tell the absolute famous story of David Hobbs falling asleep on the front straightaway at Indy in 1973 when they were in a rain delay. While they continue to clear the wreckage away, not wreckage, engine wreckage, I guess is the best way to describe it, of Giancarlo Fisichella's car. We'll take a brief break. We'll be back with more in a moment.
Never mind, it's a warm cup of tea.
Still in a red flag situation here at Indy as a result of Giancarlo Fisichella's engine blowing as he just came onto the front straightaway. They're now getting things cleaned up, and we should be going back to practice session here.
To continue that thought of Norbert Haugen, I mean, Kimi Räikkönen, you hate to harp on luck in these things, but boy, oh boy, I tell you what, that European Grand Prix, he was quickest all weekend. Every session he was quickest, and he was leading by a country mile when the engine let go. That's 10 points gone.
And then think about qualifying.
He failed to qualify. Yeah, he slid off the road in Spain, started at the back, and had the bad luck for Pizzoni to stall right under his nose and rip the whole thing off. And of course, he didn't. He did the same thing in Canada, although he finished third there, but he could have won it perhaps. And then in Germany, well, you know, he made a cracking start from the second row, but unfortunately he got nailed by Rubens Barrichello, who got nailed in turn by Ralphie Schumacher.
Derek Daly standing by with Ralf Furman.
Yes, indeed, Ralf Furman, and I once drove for Ralf Furman's dad, who's also called Ralf Furman. I know you don't remember that because you weren't even born, right?
I've just been born, but I don't remember it now, for sure.
Obviously, it's been an interesting year for you. Whenever you jump from the Japanese series, no matter how much success you had there, Formula One is just different. Has it been more difficult, Ralf, than you anticipated?
It's a huge step up from any Formula, but yeah, it's been a much more difficult step, and with the cars nowadays with groove tyres, narrow track, and just the general, the way the regulations have gone, they are very, very difficult things to drive, and you know, and it's taken a long time to get used to it, but also I've been learning all the circuits as well, and it's great to be here in Indianapolis. So
we saw the wing failure, which caused your crash, huge impact. Obviously, you're good because you're in the car, but I mean, what type of physical symptoms kept you out of the race in Monza?
I've been suffering with vertigo because of an imbalance in the inner ear just until last weekend. So it's the first time I've driven the car since, well, I drove it quickly at Silverstone last week, but it wasn't quite right, so I stopped. And it's the first time I've been able to drive the car and feel good again since the accident, and you know, obviously enjoying it.
The Friday morning test session obviously has been good for you to learn the circuit, so that's obviously at least an advantage that you had over some of these other guys.
Yeah, it helps, but on the other hand, you're not testing, whereas some of the other guys testing 3-4 times every week. We're obviously struggling with lack of time with the car. And
I detect frustration here, right? Are you frustrated?
not really. It's been a difficult first year, but an enjoyable one, and we're looking forward to going forward with Jordan for the future.
Great, thank you, Ralph. Best of luck for the rest of the weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the way he called it a first year. Obviously, he's anticipating being back for year number 2, although he is one of the big question marks.
Yeah, exactly. Jordan is one of those teams where there is a question mark hanging over them at the moment in terms of will they be around much longer? Will they be here even next year? One obviously hopes they will. Eddie Jordan can charm the birds out of the trees and hopefully the money out of the pockets to make his team viable. Jensen Button looking somewhat pensive there.
And as we continue to wait for the track to go green, we're going to take this opportunity to squeeze in yet another commercial break. We'll be back with more right after this.
Welcome back to unofficial practice for the United States Grand Prix at Indianapolis, where the track is about to go green in 1 minute's time. The problem was an engine failure on Giancarlo Fisichella's Jordan Ford. Gary, they brought the car back here and then took it past your garage. Where's it gone?
Yeah, they've gone down the end of the pit lane. Our guys are down there trying to collect it now, so we have to get it back as quick as possible and get the engine changed.
We have seen a spate of engine troubles recently. Do you suspect that this is another one in that line or something else different?
Yeah, it does look like it's the same failure, to be honest. So Cosworth are looking at the problem now and trying to identify it, but it does look in the same area, yeah.
Well, an important race for Ford. Let's hope there are no more problems this weekend.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And as you can see, we are back green. Everybody getting back out on the track very quickly. Michael Schumacher's fastest so far.
There was a lot of, in that downtime, Rick, it was interesting to see that a lot of the mechanics, the engineers had obviously studied the data and used that downtime to make some big changes on the car, which would normally not take place because it would cost too much time, too much lost track time. There was a lot of damper work going off and a lot of roll bar, sway bar work going off. So the teams, even in that downtime, making best use of it so that they don't lose any track time, so they can make some big suspension changes without the loss of track.
They will get that 20-minute gap will be given back to them.
Yeah, so instead of this session ending at 12 o'clock as we originally would at 12 o'clock Indianapolis time, it will now go 20 minutes past the hour. So as David just mentioned, they will get their full hour of practice, and as a result, that break, that 20-minute break, almost ends up as a bonus for some of these teams and the mechanics to be able to make the big changes they wouldn't ordinarily be able to make.
They have just dropped Fisichella's car off the tow truck. It's now on the ground. There is a huge amount of oil still pouring out of the backside of this car, and also they obviously thought it was going to go on fire because the fire extinguishers were set off by the track marshal, so there's a big cleanup job that they need to do in addition to the engine change on Fisichella's Jordan.
Well, you should see the look on Steve Madgen's face.
Yeah.
First off, he cringed when he said they dropped off the hook, and then hearing about all the cleanup that has to go on.
Well, the problem is that when the marshals, quite rightly to an extent, set off the onboard fire extinguishers, they automatically empty the entire contents of the bottle, and those bottles are well hidden away inside the monocoque. So now the guys have got to delve in, take the seat out, take all the panel work out to get those extinguishers out and fit fresh.
And we are hearing that there is rain at various places on the track.
Well, including the window of the booth. There's a few drops, so that is not good. That 20-minute gap, obviously there's a good side and a bad side. The good side was they could do more work to the car. The bad side was it started to rain, and by the look of the sky here, it could get pretty ugly. To the southwest corner here, it's really bad.
Watching Cristiano D'Amata now, having gone to Jarno Trulli, but a quick update on Toyota. They came in here, immediately took out the front torsion bars, Steve, on the front suspension. Took them out, obviously trying to go a bit softer because the conditions are so much cooler here. But the amount of testing these teams do is just enormous. On the week between, the 2 weeks between Monza and here in Indianapolis, Toyota had 3 test sessions going on at the same time. They were in Catalunya, Jerez and Paul Ricard with 3 different cars, 3 different drivers in an effort to get the best possible result in these last 2 events. Imagine that, 3 test sessions all at the same time.
Right, and I know exactly what they've done that for, Derek. They've taken those torsion bars out, which is the equivalent of the coilover springs now, very small, lightweight torsion bars. They would have fitted softer, and as you rightly say, because they're on Michelins and they're trying to dial out that understeer, we know the Michelins want it hot. They perform much better when it's hot, and they want to take out the understeer, so soften the front of the car up a little bit.
Jarno Trulli just set the fastest lap just a moment ago at a 1:11.153.
Obviously, because on this Friday test, you never quite know what they're all doing in terms of checking for fuel consumption. But right now, they'll all be just checking the sky as well. You can see the rain on the lens, that camera down at turn 1. Not on this lens here. This camera's way up in the grandstand.
And of course, David, as it is a practice session, the fact that it's raining now is not a really great hamper to the team throughout the weekend, because they can use this time, if the skies do open up, then they can work on the wet weather settings. So if it starts to rain tomorrow for qualifying, they'll have a good idea of what the wet weather settings should be. So they won't be too disappointed if it rains. It's a lot of work for all the team, mechanics and engineers and the drivers, of course, but it's great to get that extra data of wet running now today.
Yeah, better to get it now than to wake up on Sunday morning it's raining.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely coming down quite heavily down at the south end of the track.
Yeah, now it's becoming very visible along pit lane. You can see the moisture as it's beginning to complicate everybody's day down there. You know, it's interesting beginning to think about the effect that the rain could have on the championship. You know, that, ultimately this could be decided in many ways. But Cristiano D'Amano mentioned that in the FIA news conference yesterday. Ooh, there's Ralf Schumacher, who's gone off probably as a result of the slippery conditions.
That's where he went off in the very first US Grand Prix here down at that, and he got stuck in that gravel track.
Cristiano D'Amano was saying, you know, the way that the tire war has progressed through the year, you know, a simple 10-degree temperature difference could make a difference in the World Championship, and rain could throw the whole thing into a major uproar. Michael Schumacher going into the garage. He is 5th fastest right now, the fastest on the day so far. Jarno Trulli. We'll be back.
Toyota doesn't have it.
Back at the United States Grand Prix, where the rain has arrived, and as a result, while the session, no one is out on the track because everybody's come back in to change tires, change settings, change wings. As far as the fans, well, they're doing their best to stay dry and warm. In just a few hours, we'll have live coverage of provisional qualifying, but tomorrow, live coverage of the final round of qualifying for the United States Grand Prix. We'll start at 1:30 Eastern Time. We'll start things off with a 15-minute warm-up session, and then we'll remain live straight through to the interviews with Peter Windsor. Again, that's tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern Time, live only here on Speed. And this Friday ticket is the best deal in Formula One. For $10, you can get onto the track, no assigned seats, little general admission, and you get in, you get to watch all the action. Closest you're going to get, the only time you're going to get close to these guys, for $10. So, Steve, what's going on down there in the garage area?
Well, what'll happen now, the teams will have a look and see what sort of rain's expected, and it's starting to come down now, there's no doubt about that. So expect to see a lot of rear wing changes. I already see that Ferrari have got an extra element mounted on the top of their wing to create a little bit of downforce. Derek, you might see, I saw some of the Sauber mechanics with their speed wrenches in action at the back of the chassis. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're changing the entire rear wing element so that they have 2 or 3. The regulations say you can have no more than 3 top elements plus the 1 lower mounting element. And you can see there the Ferrari mechanics working on the camber settings as well, just changing those camber plates. So there's a lot of work going on. You want to soften the suspension up. You've got to just make everything a lot more, I suppose, user-friendly for the driver. You want to make it less sensitive. All right, David?
You just get a lot more grip when the chassis is set up soft. You lift the ride height a little bit as well to give the car more flexibility and more mechanical grip.
As we see the BAR, the first car to roll out, let's go down to the team manager. Derek is there with David Richards.
Indeed, David, you are now heading up the ship here for BAR Honda. I know there's been a lot of changes, a lot of conjecture what might happen in the future. A lot of it surrounds Jacques Villeneuve. Can you give us any update? Might he be driving for you next year?
Well, the real issue for me is this race here and the race in Japan in 2 weeks' time. With Jacques first out in the wet conditions now, that's where my priority is at the minute. The issues of next year can wait till after the season's behind us.
David, when you have a manufacturer like Honda, how much do you have to answer to them, or do they let you run the racing team as you see fit?
Well, running the racing team on a day-to-day basis as we see fit, clearly. But, you know, when you're partners with anybody, whether it's, an engine supplier, the tyre company, the sponsors, you work in partnership with them and you work to find solutions that work for them and for you for the long term. So quite naturally, you can't disregard issues of as important as partners like that.
The rally program with Subaru, obviously hugely successful with your company ProDrive. A small stint at Benetton, now at BAR. Is it a frustration sometimes that Formula One just seems to have difficulties in your path almost at every turn?
No, it's a difficult challenge, and everyone knows how difficult it is. I watched my pal Jean Todt and how long it took him to turn around the fortunes of Ferrari, and it was 5 years of hard work. And you know, when I came to this job, I said that was the sort of time scale I expected to take here as well.
The performance of the new car now with the new team led by Jeff Harris. Do you think the technical development is on track, David?
Yes, I think we're moving very steadily forwards. If you look where we were a year ago, it's a major step we've made in the last 12 months. It's very significant. In fact, nobody on the pit lanes made such a significant step in 12 months. We've got to keep it up. We've got to do the same again next year now.
Thank you, David. Good luck for the rest of the weekend.
David Rich is a man with a tremendous amount on his plate. We had dinner with him last night, and I said to him, boy, we just done some restoration on our house, got the car dealership and do the TV work, and I find that plenty to go. He, on the other hand, runs that rally team. He runs the World Rally Championship, the TV package, which he's got a lifelong job of. He runs the Formula One team. And of course he's got a bunch of other businesses as well, and he says, yeah, and I'm restoring my house as well. So, I mean, I don't know how these
don't mention teenagers and kids as well.
Got a
21-year-old son.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, talking about pushing the envelope, this Honda engine, David, at the top of the shop, you were talking about having extra horsepower. This is about 19,200, the new RA003 engine in the BAR chassis in this race.
Let's get it down to Peter Windsor. We got wet tires out there, and Peter's got someone who can talk to that.
I have indeed. I'm with Pierre de Pasquier, who's head of the Michelin Formula One race program. Pierre, do you relish these wet sessions, or do you loathe them?
Oh, we love it, just to find out where we are. It's always interesting. Depends on conditions, depends on the track. That's a brand new range, so we'll see. We're very good.
What's it been like for you this year in terms of wet? What's it been like for you this year in terms of wet testing? How much wet testing have you been able to do this year?
Oh, we did a lot. We did quite a lot since we found out that we had to enlarge a little bit the capability of our tires that are very good on the picky conditions, but in general, sometimes we are out and it doesn't work. So it's...
Now, the cars going out at the moment, I would guess, are on the shallow groove tires. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
How wet is it going to have to be on the deeper groove tire?
It depends on the track. The track does part of the job. If the track is very slippery, like concrete, like that, the tire has to do everything, so we need tread design. And if the track on its own is doing a part of the job, then we can use almost a slick tire.
Well, I'm sure there's lots of information you want to gather now, so I'll let you go. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Back to you, Derek.
Of course, for anybody, Peter, who has ever been to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to watch Indy cars run, and have asked the question, why don't they drive in the rain when they see Formula One cars with these huge rooster tails? It is all a question of the amount of water you can run on. But remember, Indy cars run down the straights here at about 25 miles an hour faster and go through the corners much faster. So the danger level of anything happening with an Indy car going that fast is just way too much to warrant them considering running on wet weather tires. However, it is very interesting for me to see these huge rooster tails and to see the amount of grip they appear to have, because they're still coming off the banking absolutely flat chat, because I'm standing about 15 feet from them.
And that is a sight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those guys going around the banking, that is the wettest part of the track. And look at those rooster tails. You can't see diddly squat. And you can't see much either.
You can't see much. I would expect all year long we've seen that the Bridgestone intermediate tyres have had a distinct upper hand over Michelin. Now we heard earlier on Marc Genet talking about Michelin's new intermediate tyres. They've made the shallow groove tyre, but I think, you know, reading between the lines, Genet was hinting at the fact that he still thinks Bridgestone are going to have the upper hand, and I would now expect to see a lot of Bridgestone runners start to come to the fore of the timesheets. In these conditions, it just must be perfect for that Bridgestone intermediate setting.
As you can see down through turns 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 there, it's actually not that wet. It's only when they start to come back towards the south end that it gets really wet again. Of course, the wettest place of all is round the banking.
Really the worst place to be the wettest of all.
Must be, yeah, exactly. And Schumacher doing something here.
Well, we saw Schumacher stopping just as he was coming out of the pit lane.
Dropping back to give himself some room, some running room to try.
Well, and plus they also, you know, just the launch control. We saw Rubens Barrichello stop in exactly the same spot just a little bit earlier. As Michael whips around Ralph.
Boy, look at that rain there. That is absolutely slashing down.
There's a nice shot there we saw of the caliper on the Ferrari being mounted low down again for centre of gravity. Keep the mass of the car as low as possible.
Right after the press conference on Friday, we spoke to Michael Schumacher and asked him, if it rains, would you prefer that? He simply smiled and said, how can we help that situation happen?
Michael's just going to roll with it whichever way it goes. Not like he doesn't have abilities in either area.
Well, he's fantastic. He's a fantastic driver anyway. You don't win 5 world championships by not being brilliant in the car, there's no doubt about that, but he is incredibly sensitive to how the car reacts in the wet. And I always repeat that little story about Michael Schumacher. He says in the dry, each corner of the car talks to you. That's how I get to figure out how to work the car, how far I can push the car. He says in the wet, it's a little bit more sensitive. The car doesn't talk to you, it whispers to you, and you have to listen extremely careful to pick up the little innuendos of how the car's reacting on track. Because you're right, David, right, it's on the edge of adhesion at all times. The cars look so solid, so stable, but it's just an absolute knife edge before the car's gone away.
Well, of course, it's a knife edge, and when it rains enough and you get a lot of standing water, that's when it becomes really hair-raising, when the cars, even those deep, deep treaded tyres, at the speed they're going, they just can't pump the water out quick enough, and they lift up on top, and you get the aquaplaning, which is the thing that really worries most people most of all. Because, ironically, the banking, which obviously the Indy cars don't run on in the rain, ironically, it's not bad for standing water because it all runs to the bottom. So you don't get much standing water on the banking. You don't get any standing water, really, unless you run to the bottom. P.B. Raikkonen, I would expect to be pretty quick in the rain. He's a man that knows no fear. Him and Montoya have had a few wheel banging incidents last year and this year, and a couple of young guys there, and of course Raikkonen at his age really does know no fear.
12 noon, we anticipated the session being over right now, but as a result of the 20-minute red flag caused by Giancarlo Fisichella's engine blowing up going into the front straightaway, they had a 20-minute downtime. They've added 20 minutes to the back end of the session. As a result, these guys get 20 minutes of rain driving.
The engineers will love that as a Now just watch the back of the carbon steering wheel on the McLaren. You might see the occasional flash. There it is, the green and red light LEDs reflecting off the back of the carbon steering wheel, which is the indication of the gear upshifts. You want to watch those green LEDs click, click, click up about 5, and then as soon as you hit the red, well, if you're doing it manually, you'll pull on the lever, or as these cars are fully automatic upshifts and downshifts, the computer will simply take over the car for you and do all that, save you shifting.
Just sampling some of the lap times that have come since the water began to fall, since the rain began to fall. You see Montoya turning a 119. His teammate Ralf Schumacher also turned a 119. Michael Schumacher turned a 116, 3 seconds faster. Jenson Button was out there to 117. Kimi Raikkonen did a 118. Jos Verstappen, not bad, doing a 119. And David Coulthard also turned a 119 as well. But right now, Michael Schumacher has the fastest lap during this wet portion of the session.
Steve, you mentioned the automatic gear changes. I asked Jeff Ferris, the technical director of BAR, what their drivers prefer. Jacques Villeneuve is fully automatic, all the way up and all the way down. Jenson Button likes to change gears on the way down himself, and he usually changes 1,000 RPM earlier than Jacques Villeneuve, which has given them gearbox troubles this season.
Yes, well, that's because you put it back into the hands of the driver.
Heaven forbid. What did they think they were doing?
Well, it's changing down manually by means flicking a paddle. It's not a real gear lever like a proper driver.
Like a real man would use.
Boy, look at that spray going out the back there. That's going to pits for that spray.
Juan Pablo Montoya brings into the pits. We are going to take a brief break. We'll come back with more from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway right after this. Back at Indianapolis, and the morning is over. Well, what was left of the morning session for Ralf Furman. Jordan number 2 has bit the dust.
They don't believe that the engine is actually blown up, but the engine has stopped, literally just cut out. So they're looking at the electricals as we speak on the telemetry here at the pits.
Yeah, Derek, we simply saw him coast off. There was no smoke, no steam.
Well, I remember from my days at Benetton, where we used to use Ford engines, that the Ford engineers would put in a system whereby if the engine got critical, it would shut itself down to prevent it detonating and destroying itself in practice sessions. You wouldn't do that in the race, of course, because you just want to push the car to the nth degree. If the car's going to let go in the race, well, hey, that's racing for you. But in practice sessions, I wouldn't be surprised, bearing in mind, because of the other engine failure, whether or not the Ford engineers have prevented an engine failure by having one of the sensors shut the ignition system off.
Well, guys, down in the BMW Williams pit, I can see a few smiles breaking out because the clouds seem to be going away and there's some blue sky there. I think that's what most of the Michelin runners want at the moment. You probably can't see it from the booth, but the clouds appear to be going away. I say that because I say that with some trepidation because I can't see the other side of the circuit, but let's hope the sun comes back out.
Well, the sun is out, as you so rightly observed. We can see it shining on the Jordan park down there at the far end. You can see the sun shining on the track now, but I don't think it's going to dry out in the 13 odd minutes or 12 and 3/4 minutes that we've got left in the session.
And we're talking about what have we learned during this rain session, and we look at the fastest times so far. The 2 fastest laps that we've been able to see are both in the 1:16 range. We believe the fastest was Michael Schumacher with a 1:16.084, followed by Jenson Button. What does that tell us?
Bridgestones are looking good in the rain.
If it rains on Sunday, look out for those Bridgestones. Now there's drying. Jenson Button is just going to the 1:15s.
So Bridgestone really want to run the race tonight because it is supposed to rain heavily tonight.
When you were talking about the decision with the little device within the engine to decide to shut it off, remember Kimi Räikkönen here last year, basically running on 9 cylinders, just running it until it finally left.
Well, that's the thing. When you go racing, you don't want to have a system that will shut the engine off to save it from blowing up. What is the point? We're trying to race. If we can limp the car home, even if it's on 4 cylinders, and pick up a couple of points, that's what you're after.
Although, it was much different 30 years ago when you were trying to salvage that engine, and it was the expense of that engine that was important to the next race.
Right.
Now it's just another lump, and we'll just go trade it out.
Well,
another $5 million.
You don't want it, you don't want to blow the engine up, not really for the cost, or that must come into it, because the fact you want to know, once the engine has destroyed itself and you're just looking at a pile of pieces all over the floor and oil, it's very difficult to figure out what it is that actually let go to cause it. Well, you want it to shut it off, then you can investigate, strip the thing down, analyse the parts and find out where the problem is.
It's probably the mechanic who forgot to put the oil in.
Nick Heidfeld, who not really having a great day, back in 18th right now. In fact, even before the rain came, he was not going quickly at all, was back in the bottom 5.
Well, he's done quite a few laps too. He's done 13 laps. That's Harold Prince has done 17.
Heidfeld is fractionally faster than his teammate. Giancarlo Fisichella has to think, well, yeah, my car's broken, but even when I broke, I was still faster than the 2 Saubers, who are his team for next year.
Well, Nick Heidfeld's just gone quicker than Rubens Barrichello in the wet, so I guess, again, Nick Heidfeld looking pretty good in the wet. Plus the wet tends to disguise a lot of chassis problems too. You know, a car that won't work well in the dry sometimes works very well in the wet.
As the track continues to dry here at Indianapolis, we're going to take another brief break, but we'll come back, we promise. Here in Indianapolis, cars still on track. The rain seems to have gone away, although the track's still very wet. Getting some brief sunshine, although even the clouds, they kind of come and go, actually. I haven't decided what's going to happen for the rest of the day. If you're just joining us, you're getting a little bonus track time, at least for those who would have joined us late, because of a 20-minute red flags that came out as a result of Giancarlo Fisichella's Jordan blowing an engine. This is number 1 and 2 in the championship right here.
In reverse order.
Let's see how they can do compared to each other right now.
Compare these rear wings. Got it set up, one big element, and then small one in the back. Very much a barn door approach, really. You see the Ferrari, different idea at all of laying the wings one atop the other.
Certainly didn't make an impression on him on the straight there, did he? Now back to these corners. Track is drying out a lot now, so we're down to just a damp track. A bit quicker to that right-hander, but couldn't do about it, of course. How about long grip here? It's 180 degrees. It's very much in it.
This is a short Pullman.
Montoya seemed to put the power down pretty good there. The only in it coming up that corner.
This again is where you need the downforce on the car for this right here. This is where the wings come into their own.
Olivier Panis moved aside. Ansel Frentzen, they already passed a moment ago. Boy, it'd be great to see these two Sunday, you know, trading places for the championship.
Track drying out very much. Dry line appearing, but there's only 5 minutes left.
There's that different approach of Ferrari. Look how the rear wings stack differently to the Williams. The one element over the top. Much less of that sort of, you know, as you say, a barn door approach to the aerodynamics. It really loads the aerodynamics at the back.
And we just saw number 1 and 2 in the championship, and here's number 3, Kimi Räikkönen. Well, Kimi Räikkönen's going to need a bit of luck to make it work for him.
Well, if Kimi can have a win and the other two DNF, I mean,
that's exactly
he
what it
will
would take.
bolt past them into the top again.
Michael Schumacher has 82 points, 3 points back at 79 is Juan Pablo Montoya, and then 75 points for Kimi Räikkönen.
And all the top runners in the championship are going to be pushing to the absolute nth degree with the performance of the car. They're not going to give anything away.
Well,
nice little slide.
Yeah.
Well gathered back in.
And as we've seen with one of the Ford engines already, it's very easy to blow a lump up down here. Say 22 seconds of flat-out acceleration, and none of the teams are going to save on horsepower and reliability because they can't
You're looking
guarantee.
for water there.
Yeah.
He's got the wets on, so he goes down and cools them off a little bit.
The Honda engine that they brought here, this Honda engine that's going to kick out about 19.1, just over 19. They have the ability to have 200 extra revs in the BAR chassis. They're allowed to use that, according to Honda, 7 times throughout the duration of the Grand Prix. So they're going to kick it. They have an extra button. It's like the old push to pass turbo days button, where they will lift the revs an extra 200 down the main straight.
But they're only allowed to do it 7 times.
You do it over 7 times, baby, and it is game over. Now, they already know that, so they'll be looking at the frequencies, what the engines are putting out, the vibrations through the blocks today to see whether or not they're going to use that on Sunday.
You mean to tell me that if Jacques Villeneuve is going into that last turn at the end of the race and he can gain 1 more point or get a point as the case may be, and he's already used it 7, he's not going to try it 8?
I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you.
I was going to say, it's one thing to tell a driver you can only do it 7. It's another to only let them use it 7. Now, if they've got a computer cutoff, that's another story. Webber, who before things got wet was 7th fastest.
Guys, down here, one of the talking points actually just in these closing minutes has been the speed of Jacques Villeneuve. He did a 15 there, which is very quick in these conditions. Again, underlying, I think, how good the Bridgestone is. Michelin runners don't look very happy. Juan Pablo Montoya came in, obviously, with 4 minutes to go before the end. And it was quite amusing to see Patrick Head jump on Juan Pablo's race engineer. And if I can lip read correctly, he was saying something along the lines of, why did you bring him in so quickly? Why didn't you leave him out till the end? Because I think Patrick wanted to get more data on the tyres. But the look on Juan Pablo's face basically said, there ain't any grip there.
No reason thrashing about, I think, is Montoya's viewpoint at this moment in time.
These guys, Renault and Trulli, we were looking around Renault chassis yesterday, and it is a beautiful piece of aerodynamics. Keep your eye on the very front of the wings, and you'll notice a black line across the leading edge of the front wing. Now, what they've done is not paint around the very leading edge of the wing, because they say it affects the aerodynamics, the flow over the car. So what they do, they leave a black unpainted section right at the very leading edge of the wing and then feather the paint back from that. That's how sensitive Mike Gascoigne believes the leading edge of the wing is. Don't put any paint on it at all.
Isn't that incredible?
Well, you would think that you'd want paint to make it slicker through the air or something.
Well, that carbon fiber comes out of the mold. It has an incredible
slickness to it. Anyway.
Yeah, shine to it.
Yeah, you'll notice it on the rear element of the wing as well. If we manage to get a shot throughout the weekend, I'll point it out to you again. But it's a black line going across it. And at one time, I remember talking to Rory Byrne when we were both at Benetton, and he said that at that stage of the progress of aerodynamics, that the leading edge was nowhere near as important as the trailing edge. Now, it seems to have all swapped around.
All right, now, having talked about that, let's think about Fernando Alonso at Monza. He's knocked off the barge boards and trays and all kinds of things, and he's still cranking around with a great finish.
He managed to get 8th place, picks up 1 point after all that damage. Went over the sleeping policeman and nearly ripped the entire FIA legality plank off the car. Certainly damaged the T-tray, the shadow plate underneath the keel.
Barge board flew off.
Barge board off, manages to finish in 8th.
How many times have we seen a barge board fly off and the guy's still in contention? But not worried about the level of paint on the front of the wing?
Not only did he finish 8th, but on the last few laps when Montoya was really straining to try and catch Michael Schumacher, old Alonso back there in 8th, cranking out about the same times as they were, and half his aerodynamic 8 were all in the dustbin by then.
He was right there with them. All right, checker flag out for this session, but do not go away, because we are not going away. We're going to stay here the entire time. We're going to be here through the entire, well, in this case, hour and 40 minutes until we get up to qualifying. We've got a very special guest who's going to be hanging out with David Hobbs in just a moment, one Sir Jackie Stewart. And if you have never seen video of the 1973 Nürburgring Grand Prix, the German Grand Prix, which most of us have not, we've got some clips that will blow you away. The quality is spectacular.
Do I have to call him Sir Jackie?
You can call him whatever you want. You and he go way back. I think Steve and I had better, though.
I think you had, really. Especially you.
I'll just call him Sir.
You probably should stand to attention at all times, too.
We'll also be down in the garage area with Derek and Peter, who will be having a number of special guests come by. So definitely you don't want to go away. In fact, we'll get a lot of great stuff coming up in the next hour and 40 minutes. And then, of course, we have the Friday qualifying session will take place afterwards, the first qualifying for this weekend's Indianapolis Grand Prix.
So there we see Mark Webber's car being pushed back in. He was 7th fastest in that session. Obviously he set that time before the rain came down. Not exactly sure what times he was doing in the rain. As you can see, it's pretty much dried out now. And obviously if it doesn't rain again between now and 2 o'clock local time now.
You know, watching David Coulthard, he did a lot of talk about what the team orders are going to be this weekend. You know, and once again, Max Mosley saying there are no team orders, but you know there are, especially when you realize that the top 3 contenders, each of their teammates are no longer in contention.
Yeah, you can just see Ron Dennis saying to David Coulthard, yeah, fight Kimi Räikkönen to the end.
Not,
exactly.
Well, the question is whether the teammates will be in a position to help out. And that's going to be the bigger issue, is whether they're going to be in a position where they can either move up or, more importantly, get in the way between themselves and one of the other contenders and take away a few valuable points that could make the difference in the championship between this race and next race.
And of course, there are just 1,001 ways that the teams can put team orders into play without it becoming obvious in the way that Ferrari did in 2002 in Austria. Whether it's an unscheduled late pit stop or just a little bit of a misfire, or one of the drivers just has a little bit of a bobble and retakes to the track again, I think it's impossible, quite frankly, for the FIA to police that team order situation. They're not going to be, the teams don't have to be as blatant as to call out onto the radio, team orders in play, please pull over and allow your teammate through, or whatever it would be.
All right, let's take a look at how the final standings were for this session. Jarno Trulli ended up being the fastest by virtue of saying that pretty fast lap just before the rain came out. Ralf Schumacher second fastest. Check out third.
Exactly. Olivier Panis in the Toyota doing a good job there. Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari. Michael Schumacher right behind him. Look at the times there. Spread from 1:11.15 to 1:11.8 in the top 8 spots there. So very, very competitive, and that's what it's going to be like on Sunday. This is going to be a tremendous race.
Fernando Alonso was the fastest in the first section. I think Montoya was fast in the second, Trulli fastest in the third. Kimi Räikkönen 9th, Cristiano D'Amato 11th. Jacques Villeneuve, though, even though that's not such a great time, he's back in 14th, he was very quick as the track was drying out and had one of the faster laps.
As was his teammate, Jenson Button.
Giancarlo Fisichella had the engine blow. Ralph Furman, who had his engine stop. Not quite sure what went wrong inside.
Another great day for Jordan so far.
And how much are they paying
had
for
a lot
those
of problems this morning in the pre-practice.
Nicholas Chiesa, not bad running for him in the minority, finishing ahead of both of the Saubers and his teammate Jos Verstappen.
Boy, Sauber having a really bad day, because it's not like they didn't do a lot of laps.
And ladies and gentlemen, Bernie Ecclestone is in the house. The man at the helm of Formula One. We're going to take a break as the photographers line up. We'll come back with more from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Don't go away. A lot of great information and great interviews coming up. Back at Indianapolis, where the session has come to an end, and what they're doing is they're bringing out the 3 championship contenders, Michael Schumacher, Juan Pablo Montoya, and Kimi Räikkönen onto the front straightaway. The assembled photographers are going to get that brief moment where they get the 3 of these together, and Bernie Ecclestone as well walking out there. Yesterday during the press conference, they tried to get this group to get a moment where they kind of shake hands, and then behind it all was Fernando Alonso waving his arm, and all the photographers were like, that didn't work well at all. And look at Michael goofing off, sticking his hat on top of Bernie Ecclestone. And you had a nice chat with Michael yesterday, Steve.
Yeah, I caught up with him. You know, me and Michael go back some time from when we were both at Benetton. We remember we won the World Championships with Michael in '94 and '95. And it was good to catch up with him. We were just chatting about what he was doing during his couple of days when he was in Las Vegas. He's talking about his wife riding horses, so he was just chatting, very relaxed. You wouldn't believe he was on the point of fighting for that 6th World Championship. It was just like he was in a test session, no pressure at all.
Very relaxed, very casual. Yesterday, after the news conference, he went out and did some interviews with the press, and then had this walkabout for all the fans who had a 3-day pass who could go on a pit lane. He went up to the fence, he was signing autographs, working his way through the crowd. You would have thought he was Arnold Schwarzenegger running for governor of California the way he was working the crowd.
You know, Rick, you have to guess that these guys are under pressure all the while. They must, in a way, just absorb so much pressure. And even now, look, signing autographs as he's walking back towards the Ferrari paddock and to get ready again for the qualifying session. So I think it's just a mental state that they get into. They're just very calm, very relaxed. And, of course, once they're out of the car and they're not driving at 200 miles an hour, the entire world seems much slower.
And, you know, I have to say, look at that, Michael, one last time, squeeze up one last autograph before he walks back and do the debrief. Let's go down to Peter, who's got Alan McNish.
I have indeed, yeah. Alan McNish, one of the reasons behind Renault's great season this year. They've done a fabulous job on those Friday untimed practice sessions. Alan's driven a 3rd car. He's usually done long runs, done a lot of tyre development. What was it like here at Indy this morning, Alan?
Well, the circuit actually was quite slippery, but I don't think it was in bad shape. Considering it's only used, very few times, then it was pretty okay.
So I'm just going to pitch to this piece.
wasn't quite what was expected, and certainly we didn't expect rain when we were coming across. However, we were able to get a good idea of the right tyre to choose for the weekend, and also we got a pretty good idea of the setup we needed. And you know, with the limited dry running, that could be in our favour come Saturday.
Well, it's looking pretty good for Renault at the moment. What do you think about the layout of the circuit here? Does it look like a Renault victory circuit?
No, I wouldn't say so. We are very, very strong aerodynamically, and we've got good downforce off the car, and so in the centre section of the track, basically in the twisty bits, we're very good. However, here it's got a big long straight, and from top speed point of view, we're having to work a little bit harder, and so I'd say that well, there's no reason why we can't have a podium, but I certainly don't think it'll be a victory.
You've done a fabulous job for Renault this year. Congratulations on that. 2004?
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, I want to get back to racing, and I think this year's been an extremely good one. It's put me into a different level, and you know, there's a lot of plans afoot in trying to actually make sure that happens for 2004.
Well, let's hope it happens for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, a lot of people think that team is overachieving this year, considering where they were, where they've arrived, the fact that they've got a victory, they've gotten poles out of this season. It's been a pretty amazing season for that team.
Oh, it has. Boy, you know, we were looking around at the Renault chassis, and exactly what Alan McNish was talking about, great aerodynamics. I mean, some parts of that the R23 chassis, it looks like a Salvador Dali sculpture. You know, the chimneys all over the place and the little winglets, but the airflow over it is absolutely fantastic. And as they say, great aerodynamics in the middle section, in the tight section of the circuit, but where they're going to lose out, again, as McNish rightly points out, they're going to lose out on horsepower.
In fact, we're going to get a tour of that car with Steve Matchett coming up in just a moment. So don't go away. We'll come back with more live from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Speed Channel's coverage of the U.S. Grand Prix. Back here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, this is what it looked like just a few moments ago when Michael Schumacher was going down the front straightaway. Practice has come to an end, however, and now it's time to take a closer look at some of the cars that are out here. The big surprise this year really has to have been the Renault and the performance of Fernando Alonso, but Steve Matchett got a tour of the car yesterday and got a chance to take a look at some little aerodynamic toys. Let's take a closer look.
All year long on Speed Channel, we've been giving great credit to the Renault R23 chassis. Well, here it is in the Indianapolis pits, in the Renault pits. So let's have a look at one of the key elements of that aerodynamic package, the rear wing element. And today I'm joined by Alan Permain, one of Renault's chief engineers and race engineer with Jarno Trulli. Alan, thank you very much for joining us. Can you talk us through how the rear wing is adjusted throughout the Indianapolis Grand Prix weekend?
Yeah, we obtain our start settings from computer simulation.
Right.
So we spend time back in England running the car around a track on the computer, gives us an initial setting, and we'll then trim the wing out as we need to, depending on what top speeds we're looking for, how we compare to others. Obviously, the more wing you take off, the faster you go, but therefore you have less downforce, so the slower you go in the tight sections. So it's all about a compromise between the straight line speed and how quick you are in the infield section.
Now, looking at the wing, I have to say it's a beautiful piece of mechanical engineering. Everything is so smooth, the lines on it. But look here, bring the camera down here and I'll show you this. These are the small hole adjustments where the engineers will call for to make small, more or less downforce adjustments. But after the adjustment has been made on these screws, come back here and have a look at this, where we put little circles of tape over the top just to keep the airflow as smooth as possible over the flow of that wing end plate. That's how you go about setting the rear of the car up. Now, the front of the car has to be trimmed to keep the overall aerodynamic balance equal. So let's go and have a look at the front of the car. Here we are at the sharp end of the car. You're looking at the front wing of the Renault R23 chassis. Now, Alan, we've talked about setting the rear of the car up aerodynamically. What do we do at the front to balance the car up?
Well, the car runs with about 35% of its downforce generated from the front. So the less rear wing we have, the less front wing we have. And we tune that with different sizes of flaps. And then each of those flaps has an adjustment range on it. And if you look down here, Steve, you can see the angles. We give the mechanics an angle to set the wing to, they set it to. It's quite simple. In the pit stop, they can make a very quick adjustment by turning that, and it's done.
Very good. Couple of other things I'd love to point out here. One is the pitot tube up on the nose. The pitot tube is a device used for measuring wind speed throughout the duration of the lap. So using that information, the engineers can look at it and fine trim the aerodynamics, knowing what the wind speed is over the car. Also, look here at the very fine gurney flaps on top of the wing flaps, just to create a little bit more downforce. all in all, I have to say that the Renault chassis is possibly one of the best chassis I've seen. It's super smooth and great aerodynamics all over the thing. Alan, thanks for sharing some of your time with us. I know you're very pressed for time during the weekend, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Well, there we are, and it's just, I have to say, just a fantastic piece there you saw. And if you look carefully at that front wing, you'd have probably noticed what we were talking about there during the practice session, that little black unpainted line, which is so critical, the leading edge of the aerodynamics.
And it's okay to have the pitot tube sticking up in the middle of the, disrupting the entire flow, but heaven forbid you should have an extra layer of paint on the front of the wing.
Exactly, yeah, it has to be. The pitot tube doesn't really affect the airflow of the chassis because it's such a small, fine tube, but you want that leading edge to be as absolutely smooth as possible. But they have got it right. We say Fernando Alonso had so much luck when he was ripping pieces off the car, but they do hours and hours and hours of work in the wind tunnel to get that car right, and it's paid off.
All right, let's talk about it. Is it the aerodynamics of the Renault, or is it the chassis design of the Renault?
I'd have to say it's the aerodynamics of the chassis, which is probably a little bit of a cop-out answer. But if you get a very slippery car that can go through the air without causing any drag or any disturbance, then you can start to play with the mechanical side. But coming here, for example, setting the car up, the team, let's talk about Renault because that was the piece we were looking at there. Renault will do a computer simulation to set the aerodynamics for a start, and from that point, then they will work on the rest of the car, the gear ratios and the springs and the sway bars, etc. So it all stems from getting the wings right to start with.
And looking at that rear wing, it is radically different than Ferrari, than the BAR, radically different.
Right, yeah, and it's really all about reducing the drag on the end, each side of the span of the wing, to try and reduce the effect, the drag from the vortices coming off the back. And we'll probably see that if we get a little bit more rain over the weekend. Look how small those rooster tails are on the Renault in comparison to some of the smaller teams that haven't got the money to spend those hours in the wind tunnel. Let's pick one at random, say Minardi. Let's have a look at the way the rooster tails are on the Minardi in comparison to the Renault.
Looking to next year, did they give you any hint? Have they got any toys to come out that's going to make them take a next big jump?
Well, what they need to do is work on their engine power. As Alan McNish was saying, what they really need to do is work on their engine power. They have got a more conventional engine. I think they're going to a 90-degree V10, so this radical 110, 111 wide angle that they've used this season will be scrapped, even though they've got great power out of it in the last few races. So that if they can get more horsepower, they're going to be a real threat to the big three.
The only concern in scrapping it is obviously how far back it will set them in the design point again.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they've figured this one out, time to move on. We're going to take a brief break. We'll come back with more from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Friday for the U.S. Grand Prix. We'll be right back. Back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where things are drying out after what turned into a fairly wet practice session this morning and started dry. It was really nice for a while, and then the rain hit quite hard at one point.
It hit very hard down the south end of the circuit, of course, which would be IndyCar Turn 1, and really it was extraordinary to see those cars coming out of the Formula 1 circuit Turn 10, 11, which is coming up onto the banking, and going through that banking, increasing up to about 190 miles an hour in the pouring rain around that banking down this long front stretch. Pretty good to watch that. The rooster tail's absolutely enormous.
And you've been down this front straightaway in the dry. You never want to do it in the rain.
No, I don't want to do it in the rain. No, not at all, no.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Sir Jackie Stewart is here, and we're going to celebrate his third championship from back in 1973. Some spectacular video from Germany. We'll be right back.